All right. So today I'm going to talk about Concourse. It's the ultimate continuous thing doer, right? So it's about CI/CD. Do you guys know what CI/CD stand for? What is it? Yeah, and before I start, what is difference between continuous deployment and continuous delivery? Have you guys thought about that? Because someone was pulling my hair out because I was interchanging them too. All right, so my name is Yosep Kim. It's Yosep, not Yosef. I'm a platform architect at Pivotal. So I love this title because it sounds so smart, but this is more like sales engineering role. Can you hear me?
I hit the wrong one.
It's okay. Yeah, so I help our clients. So just telling you a little bit more about Pivotal. We have two major business units, if you will. We have a consulting business, and we have a product. Product is called Pivotal Cloud Foundry. Have you guys used Heroku before? It's amazing, right? And that's one of the reasons why I started falling in love with Rails, actually, because when Rails was taking off, Heroku basically showed up and said, hey, wouldn't it be nice if you can just do a git push and your app is up and running with all the backing services and whatnot? So there was a huge opportunity there in enterprise space, right? Because you think about hospitals or financial institute using Heroku to run their critical application. They're not going to do that. So they wanted to have their own Heroku running in their private cloud, running vSpheres or whatever. So hence, Cloud Foundry came about. So I was with the consulting division, Pivotal Labs, where we sponsored Ruby Meetup for 2.5 years or something like that. But beginning of this year, I became this awesome, sexy title job, platform architect. I love Ruby. I don't really code anymore. I'm with 3 little kids. I'm like a zombie coder. Usually I'm like this, and then when I see opportunity, I start coding, but pretty bad, right? Joachim@pivotal.io, that's my email address. If you really don't mind, whoever has iPhone 10, take a picture of me and then send it to here, right? Because I really want to have an artifact and proof that I did give a talk here. I'm serious, actually. All right, and since I work for Pivotal, I gotta do this shameless plug here. Pivotal actually owns Spring Foundation. Spring, do you guys know what Spring is?
Java Spring?
Yeah, Java Spring. Yeah, so if you're a Java developer, Spring basically allows you to create Ruby on Rails style experience for Java developers. Yeah? And so we have a huge conference called Spring One that takes every year. And but we started doing this tour. So we are touring different cities. And we're going to have it tomorrow in Atlanta for the next 2 days. That's the coupon code for $50 off. Yeah, so you have to pay still, right? $50 off, the gimmick. Yeah, so if you are interested in Java, and I don't think you guys are, so moving on. Okay, so Concourse. I know like my slide says pivot on the bottom, and I am sales engineer, and you probably think this guy is trying to sell me something, right? No, I'm not. So Concourse is actually a open source project. Okay, a lot of our own developers contribute, Pivotal folks contribute to it, but it is an open source. So I'm not here to sell you anything, all right? But I do have a custom t-shirt business that you can come and talk to me about that I'm selling, okay? I'll give you a discount, different discount code though. So why Concourse, yeah? So who here use some sort of a CI/CD technologies at work or home? Okay, great. What do you guys use? Just out of curiosity. GitLab, yeah, you told me that. And you're running in running it, the whole thing in your house.
Yeah.
Right. How about other ones? Jenkins, yeah, that cool logo guy. Yeah. Semaphore. Semaphore CI. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Circle CI. Wow, all over the place. So why Concourse? And this is, sorry, these slides are from our product marketing people, right? So it looks very cool, right? And you'll see some of the slides that I edit. It'll be hard to tell, but you'll be able to tell. So why Concourse? Yeah, it looks like. Do you guys know the benefit of CI/CD in general? Yeah. Okay. So what is the point of doing CI/CD? Yeah. You reduce human error. By what?
Consistency and predictability.
Okay.
So consistency, you can gate your code to pass certain quality standards before it gets merged in, and dependability, you can deploy on a regular basis without having to wait for the deployment people to do their thing. It happens.
Right, right. So who here works for a large company, like an enterprise, if you will? Smaller teams, I guess. So what if you are building a startup just by yourself? Would you need to have CI/CD pipeline set up? What do you think? Huh?
Yes.
Why? Why?
It's going to make your life easier.
Why is that?
Automating test runs so you know if there's a problem before you ship it to production.
Right. Yeah.
It compresses the time that it takes between development and getting features out there.
Right. And oh yeah.
Prevents you from making 3 a.m. mistakes.
What's 3? Oh, 3 a.m. in the morning. Yeah. Right, right. Yeah. Those are great answers. So those, yeah.
It makes you practice test-driven development. You cannot cheat.
Ooh.
I could cheat. Maybe you can cheat.
Yeah, yeah.
You should not cheat.
So,
It definitely, but it definitely, once you have a team, so once you go from one person to 2 people, you can have coding standards that have a culture and a way of enforcing them, and you have tools to do that.
yeah. It's a true story. I worked with a client, and they had almost more than 1,000 tests already in the code, right? I was like, wow, this is great. All the tests were passing. That's awesome. And so I started doing some monkey testing. So basically, monkey testing, you go in and start removing some code, right? And I ran all the tests, and they were all still running. They were all green again. So I started moving files, still all passing. And finally, we opened all those tests, and most of them were just junk, right? It was mocking, but it wasn't mocking some stuff, and he wasn't even using the mocks, and it was crazy, right? And so they have a CI/CD, right? And so CI/CD is not silver bullet, but if you do it the right way, like it's going to make your job so much easier, right? Concourse, Concourse is a relatively new project. So we have Jenkins, Circle CI, we have Travis, right? There's a whole bunch of them. Why did they create Concourse? Because it makes your CI/CD life easy. And that's what it's saying here, right? Containerized build and test. So basically, it uses Docker images, right? So all the jobs you're running, Jenkins, it's not that way last time I checked. So if you have a Jenkins job kind of hogging the resources, it can actually bring down the whole server down. Whereas Concourse, it uses containers. So each job is isolated. Yeah, it's so salesy, right? Modern pipeline automation, Skip. So, and visual pipeline feedback, so it has a beautiful UI to it, so it's pretty nice. And there's, so yeah, you read it. So let's talk about Concourse in detail. All right. So since you guys practice CI/CD already, I don't have to explain this too much. So what do you do usually? So usually, as a developer, how many of you are developers here? Full-time writing code, okay. Not to put you on the spot, like since you're not a developer, what do you do, gentlemen?
What do I do?
Yeah.
I'm more like a background systems engineer, but right now I do a lot of training and education.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah. So what do you do? So after we write code, we check in to somewhere like GitHub or Bitbucket. What does it do? What does your CI/CD do? How does it work? How does your CI/CD work at TAD?
So essentially, after every check-in, it brings back to our CI server with the fact that
Okay.
so we'll pull it down and start running.
Right. So it pulls out. So basically, like usually you have a little webhook. So whenever you commit your code into GitHub, your CI/CD wakes up, pulls the code down, builds it, runs some tests, right? Maybe unit tests, run some end-to-end tests, right? UI test, and then once they are passing, what do? You may be running linter, right, to make sure your code is clean. You may, and then you may deploy. If it's Ruby on Rails, it's that simple, right? However, if you think about Java, that most of enterprises use, what do? So they check the code out, they build it, they run code analysis, right? SonarQube or whatever. They run linter as well, and they run unit tests, end-to-end tests, and what do? They publish the jar file to some sort of artifactory, right? JFrog artifactory or somewhere, Nexus somewhere. And then the next job will grab the jar that is built and deploy it to staging environment. And if that goes well, you run smoke tests against it, right? And then the next job would be grabbing the jar again and push it to a production environment or something like that, right? But just giving you some context, right? Since you guys are working in a smaller team, enterprise, setting up CI/CD is not easy because there's all these the gate checks, right? Gate. You need to actually create a ticket. They usually use a tool called ServiceNow or something. So someone has to actually create a ticket. I am doing this, blah, 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 blah. I need to take this server down and whatever. Someone manually had to do that. So fully automating CI/CD pipeline is a challenge for them, right? However, ServiceNow has API now. So you can now start automating all that stuff. But anyway, there's a lot of steps, manual steps you can see that you need to somehow get either robot to do it or manually do it. Without CI/CD, deployment can take up to 6 months. And since you're working in a smaller team, that doesn't make. How often do you guys deploy to prod? All the time, multiple times a day. Everybody? Yeah, every other day, right? But most of our enterprise friends, if they have an adopted DevOps mindset, they actually deploy still twice a year or once a year. And you're like, oh, no way, man. It's 2019, right? And literally, people still deploy once a year, right? So
Someone's job is to drag the files or when an SCP. I guarantee you it's someplace.
yeah, and some people actually email their source code. It happens, right? Right. So Concourse, how does it work? So there are 3 major primitives that you need to know: resource, jobs, and task. So resource is things that I can use to run my task, right? And I'll show you some example. Jobs is basically a series of steps, series of tasks I need to run. Yeah, and task is the actual execution unit. And I'll show you some examples later. There are some resources that are available already. Git repo, so dealing with Git, there's a resource available for that. if you need to create file and then save artifact to a S3 bucket, you can do this as well. Like there's a resource already available for that. Docker images, hooking up to Pivotal Tracker is automated. Well, there's a resource available for that as well. I didn't talk about versioning. How do you guys handle versioning in your pipeline? Do you guys do that? Do you guys version your code? Yeah.
It really depends on project. So there really is not a version. It's maybe a shot from the get. Others, where there has been a release, usually the versions were declared ahead of time because it's more like a customer. And so once that gets merged, it's tagged, like with a git tag
Sure.
-s.
Yeah.
But versions have always been something that's a little bit human defined, like by the business process. But it was Simber.
Right.
But it wasn't related to commits. It was related to contractually obligated sets of functionality that their customer expected in that release.
Okay.
What other version? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Anyone else want to chip in? How do you handle versioning? I know if you're working a smaller team, but let's say you're building APIs for your end consumers, right? You need to version your executables or your APIs. How do you do that? Yeah.
One thing we tend to not version the thing that's the closest to the customer. And version almost everything else because those are libraries that we use internally or APIs.
Right.
But the things that change really, really frequently that are closest to the customer, we tend not to do.
I see. Yeah, so the practice that I've been following, it may not be best practice, but we follow is anytime you do a daily deployments or multiple deployments a day, that one we do a patch, right? We increment patch. And then we have a manual intervention to do a minor update or major update, right? When I say manual, it's not like someone going in there manually updating the Simber. You actually use another Git repo to signal this one needs to be updated to this major or minor release, if that makes sense. Does it make sense? Yeah? Okay. And also, we have time resource. So if you want to create a cron job, right? So Concourse, you'll see this later on. Concourse makes automation so easy that you can use this for anything you want. You can use it for ETL process, right? If you want, you can use this. You can set up a Concourse job to actually pay your friend through Venmo every month. You can do that and send an email out to you and your friend and saying, I paid you money, here's a receipt, right? And I'll show you how that's possible. So I talked about resource and job and task and how do they relate to each other. So the pipeline, CI/CD pipeline is defined in YAML file, yeah? So resource is defined in this fashion. So as I said, there's a Git resource, Simber resource, time resource, and things like that. For example, this is a Git resource. So basically, I'm saying this pipeline uses Git resource, and I'm going to name it source code, right? And then I'm passing these parameters. URL to the Git repo it needs to check, and then branch. And so that's going to be shown up in the main pipeline at the top. And then we're going to define jobs. So job, I have a plan. So plan basically specify series of tasks, right? So first thing it's going to do is going to get source code. What is this source code? Source code is this guy right here. Do you see my mouse? Yeah, right here. So basically, I'm getting a Git repo from this location, and it says trigger true. That means this Git resource will ping it and trigger the job, right? So basically, it's going to keep pinging it and say, is there any new updates in the master branch? Oh, new commit shows up. Then I'm going to kick this job off, right? And then once this is done, once I get the source code, I can run task. I can run unit test, right? And then the file that's going to be executed for this task, right, unit.yaml. And now I have a task here. And so it's going to be using Docker image, and it's going to use Ruby image from Docker Hub. Since I didn't specify repository URL, I'm saying by default it's going to go to Docker Hub and get Ruby image downloaded to create a container out of that so I can run the task inside of the container. Does that make sense? So, and I'm going to run basically source code rake rspec. It's wrong, it's spec, yeah. But anyway, do you get the idea a little bit? So basically, task is going to be running in its own container, and if I need to run shell script or JavaScript or Ruby code in there, do whatever you want to do, right? Okay. It was going to be a joke because it's really hard to read, right? I was going to check your eyesight, but never mind. So anyway, yeah, I'm a little tired today. So okay, so pipeline. Let's look at the pipeline in another way, right? So a job, and I have a whole bunch of things. So I have a job, and I have a plan. And so a typical job would be git repo, just check it out, basically clone the thing out. And I can also clone, if I'm dealing with multiple repos, I can clone multiple repos down. And then I'm going to run task in the form of shell scripting, Ruby scripting, or some sort of scripting, right? And then so maybe my job, actually what it does is it creates PDF files. And if I do put to S3, what it's going to do is it's going to copy these files, basically upload these files to S3 buckets. And I may have another job from S3. I'm reading from S3 bucket. I'm downloading the file. And then I may process the file however I want. And then after that, I may push the, maybe it's jar file, I don't know, push the PCF or Heroku. And then basically putting some message to Slack bot, meaning I'm going to get a Slack message saying it was deployed successfully. Yeah? Right. So another visual way, right? Get the repo, clone it down, run task, and then deploy. This is a very simple example. Right? And we have integration. So we have resources available for Slack, email, if you need to interact with the Docker Hub, Git, you name it. And once again, this is an open source project, so there are people that are creating their own resources and contributing back to the community. Right? And so the beautiful slide mentioned earlier that we have a pretty visualized UI, and it looks something like this. So this green box represents job, right? And these little black things right here, these are resources that the job and the task depend upon, right? So the first job may kick off and runs. If it fails, it turns red, and it's not going to go to the next one unless this becomes green, right? So you can define dependencies. So basically, you can create a workflow, and then you can continuously run that however many times you want, right? So this is not just pipeline patterns for Concourse. This is usually this is a well-known pattern for any CI/CD pipeline. Trigger a pipeline on a time resource. So time, I can define crons, or I can, in a cron way. So every minute, do something. Every month, do something. Every first Monday of the month, do something, right? And trigger a pipeline when a dependent resource changes, just like a Git, and sharing artifacts. And while I was working on Ruby, we don't really put our artifacts and store it somewhere, right? We don't do that. Like Java, we get jar files. .NET, we get exes. And we put them somewhere, like Nexus, Artifactory, somewhere. We're storing that so we can easily go back to it. How do we handle rollback in Ruby? Or CI/CD pipeline, how do we handle rollback? Let's say I deployed to staging environment, I ran my smoke test, it fails. How do you roll back your staging environment? How do you do that?
There's a couple ways. So if you used to use Capistrano, it would actually have releases in the directory structure.
Sure.
And it would point current. So to do a rollback, it would simply change current assembly to point back to the other. If you use things like Elastic Beanstalk and Amazon, they're actually storing packages of your Ruby code in MS3, and eventually you have to go through and say, delete these 900 releases. That was kind of excessive. So often the CI/CD or something like Capistrano handles that, not so much your Ruby code.
Yeah.
Today you can use Docker tags and just roll back to a previous Docker tag version.
Right.
Because
That's a great idea, right? Or if since you're creating, even though you're not creating artifacts, you may be creating a tag, right? Even for your minor or patch release, you're creating a tag in your repo. So when things go wrong, all you have to do is just check the previous tag out and then deploy, right? And that's another way. And after everything is done, you notify users, right? Okay, let's do a demo. Okay, so let's see. Let's see if I can remember this. So can you guys see my screen here? These are very small. I'm sorry. I don't know how to make this big, the left-hand side. Can you make it big? I can read it for you, okay? I can read it for you. It says, so this is a regular Rails app, yeah? And then I have a folder called CI/CD, and I have a file named pipeline.yaml. This is the YAML file that defines my CI/CD pipeline, right? As we talked about before, I have resource. So I have a Git resource, and that one is pointing to my source code on GitHub, right? And if you go over here, I'm not lying. It's right here. That's my code, right? It's pointing to that. And I have another resource. This is type CF. So since I work for Pivotal, I don't push to Heroku anymore. I'm sorry, guys. No, I'm kidding. So I get free accounts, so that's why I use Pivotal Cloud Foundry. So using this resource, I'll be able to just push my app with one command to Pivotal Cloud Foundry. And I'm using another one. The type is select notification, and you probably guess what this does. This basically send message to my Slack channel or whatever, right? And the type is select notification. And you're like, okay, that's cool. And if you look, this type is actually defined up here, right? The name is select notification. So you can create your own resource if you want to. And it's basically a Docker image, right? And I'm just pulling this repo down, and this guy contains all the code that I need in order to talk to Slack, as long as I pass in this webhook, right? And you will see that, do you guys know, oh yeah, go ahead, sorry. Oh, this guy right here? Okay. This guy right here? Oh, yeah. I don't want to make the whole thing big. But thank you, though. But y'all can kind of follow, right? Not really? Yeah. So are you guys familiar with the YAML file and then its construct, right? So these things, all it's doing is reading basically it's reading variables, environment variables into it, right? And I'll show you how we populate these variables and then merge them into this file. So far so good. You know what all the researchers are going to use. And now we have jobs, right? So first job is unit test. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to use Git resource, which is this guy. I'm basically cloning out this source code. And then I'm going to run task. I'm going to run unit test. And here it says git resource ci/cd task run test.yaml. So when I do git resource, when I clone it out, it basically clones out my source code into a folder named git-resource. And that is why I am saying git resource. This is the name of the folder in which my code resides. Does that make sense so far? Because this is very important. So in my container inside of Concourse, after we do this, inside of my home directory, this exact source code structure will be present in this folder. Yes? And so if you look at task run test.yaml, which is this guy, so this defines a task. It's going to be using Docker image, of course. And I am checking out Ruby, and then the tag is 2.5.5 stretch. Basically, this is a base image that I'm running my task in. Yeah? And inputs to it, so basically what I'm saying is, after I create this container with this image, I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to bring that Git resource available. Basically, I'm mounting that Git resource onto this container. Does it make sense? And then I'm going to run. What are you going to run? I'm going to run a shell script, which is also in here. Run unit test. So what does it do? I'm doing gem install bundler. So I remember the base image was Ruby image. So it doesn't have bundler out of the box. So I'm installing it. And then I'm cd changing directory into Git resource. And I'm going to do bundle install to basically download all the gems I need. And then I'm going to run spec. If it fails, what does it do? Like you guys know more than me. Yeah, well, so if our spec fails, even if you have one failed test, the return code, exit code is not 0 anymore. And that's how Concourse knows whether or not the job failed, right? So if every test succeeds, this command will return exit code of 0, so the job is successful, moving on, right? So pipeline, going back to it. So after this job is done, I said after because look at this guy. The second job called build actually waits for unit test, which is the first job. If that guy passes, then I'll kick the second job. Does it make sense so far? Yeah? And then it's also trigger, right? If that unit test pass, then this whole job will trigger. And I'm going to precompile assets. So before you all know why we should precompile assets. Yeah? Do I need to explain that? You don't have to, but like, let's say you are building a Ruby on Rails app, and if you do a git push Heroku master, what does it do? It pushes it, creates a container, it installs build pack, and on top of Ruby build pack, what does it do? It starts getting all the gems, and if precompiled asset is not available, what does it do? It compiles your assets on the fly, right? So the whole deployment cycle is pretty long, right? Does it make sense? So basically my job, first task, I'm going to precompile the assets, and I'll show you. Same thing again, I'm using Ruby resource, and look what I'm doing. Input is Git resource, so I'm getting the source code. I'm cloning it out. And I'm also creating a outputs folder. And I'm going to call that folder precompiled assets. And what am I going to do is, just to show you what you can do with Concourse and what you cannot do, instead of creating a separate shell script file, you can actually run shell script in line if you wanted to, right? So what does it do? I'm doing gem install bundler because this task run its own container. So even though I had unit test container, whatever I'm doing, it's not really available on the second container, right? Because it's a brand new container. So I have to do it again. I have to install bundler again. I'm sitting into it, and I'm doing bundle install, and I basically do asset precompile. Yep. And then what I'm doing is I basically copying all the files from Git source onto precompiled assets folder, and I'll explain why I do that. So precompiled assets will contain source code plus assets folder inside of public folder. Yeah? That's where the precompiled assets goes to, right? So remember this. I copy that, copy those files. And after that, what do? After precompiling the assets, I use deploy CF resource, which is this guy right here, right? And so this guy basically does CF push command for me. CF push command is one-line command that will basically deploy your app to Pivotal Cloud Foundry environment. So I specify manifest. So manifest file is something that CF command uses to see, and I'll show you what that is. Basically specifying metadata information about your application. So name of the application is field-companion. That's going to basically the, what do you call it, subdomain to your URL, right? When you do Heroku push, what does it do? Your app name or some random string dash or dot herokuapps.com. Remember that? So it's doing the similar thing. And I specify what build pack to use. If I don't use this, if I don't specify build pack here, CF will basically, Pivotal Cloud Foundry will try to determine what build pack to use, just like Heroku does. But if I do this, it knows exactly what build pack to use, so it doesn't have to scan, right? So let's go back to pipeline again. So, yep, using this manifest, and I'm going to use the source code inside of precompiled assets directory. Yeah? This is the directory that contains assets, precompiled assets. Make sense? Okay. So if the job is successful, I'm going to I'm going to use notify to send out this text message, deployment succeed. What is notify, if you remember? Notify is select notification resource. So basically, after the job is done, boom, it'll be, you'll get a select notification. If it fails, you get this message. Make sense so far? Yeah? Okay. So let me show you the beautiful UI. So that's it. So Git resource, it basically shows you unit test job depends on Git resource, right? And then this build job depends on unit test and also Git resource. And once it succeeds, and I'll deploy to CF and also notify. Does that make sense? Yeah? So let's kick it off. How do I kick it off? Oh, yeah, I need to make a change to code. So let me show you my app running at Pivotal Cloud Foundry. So that's my local app. It's so complex. Yeah. Sure, if you can see this. I guess you guys cannot see that. OK, that's fine. Yeah, so let's make the color of this to red. OK? I guess I can do what? That's index page. There we go. Ooh, I use inline styling. Do you guys like inline styling? Sorry, I'm a zombie developer. See what I do when I wake up from my sleep. It's pretty bad. And I don't recommend you to.
Marquee tag.
Oh my gosh, yes.
What happened?
Doesn't work anymore.
What doesn't work anymore?
The marquee tag where it scrolls.
Oh, really?
Blink? Does blink not work?
No.
Oh, the marquee tag. Oh, I see. So let's change this to, is it color? I think red. Is it case sensitive? We'll see. We'll see. Let's see. Does it work? Yeah. It's so lovely now. I didn't know until like a few months ago this actually means heart. Yeah, so I'm using it quite often in my emails to my customers. Okay, so I'm done with this. Oh no, what happened? Oh, shifted to the rescue. Yeah, there we go. A little slow. So git st, git, do you like this command? This is one of my favorite, git add-p. Do you know what it does?
Is it like the individual file?
Yeah, individual chunk. So it'll actually make you review, right? So do I want this hunk? Yeah, yes, I want that. All right, so git commit, change the heart to red. Change the color of the heart to red. And I'm going to push. Okay? And let's see. Where's my pipeline? Is this guy? Yeah. Let's see if it's going to run. And I'm online, I think, because I was able to push. So by default, it checks Git resource every minute. So I'm going to see if it's going to. And by the way, I am running this Concourse instance locally, right? And so if you're using Mac, and actually this works in Windows as well or Linux, you just download Docker Compose file, and then just say Docker Compose up, and it's going to spin up. So just talking about internals of Concourse, it has web node basically servicing the, oh, look at that, beautiful. It's pulsing too, indicating that it's working hard for you. So it has a web node that powers this UI, and we have worker nodes that actually runs these jobs, and the database instance. It uses Postgres behind the scene, and it's doing that. And let's see what it's doing. So Git resource, first thing, look, change the color of the heart to red, right? So he checked it out. And then run unit test. So you're like, OK, so how does it do? So if you look at this name, if you remember.
Can you try Command Shift plus?
Oh, here?
On Sublime.
Sublime. Yeah, I can make this guy big all day. Does it better? Yeah. But I don't really think you need to see this. Yeah. I mean, well, if you want to see it, I'll show you later, privately. OK, so yeah. So basically, it's executing this guy right now. So it's doing bundle install. So first thing it did was downloading bundler, gem install bundler. And now it's fetching all the gems.
Are those boxes the previous runs?
What is it again?
Are there numbered boxes like the individual?
Yes. So anytime it runs, it'll just add the thing. Oh, yeah. So the test ran successfully, right? It ran all the tests for 0 failures, of course. Rails never, because I did not add any new test. So it was default test, so it's working. So that one passed. And now, second one wakes up and says, hey, I'm going to build and deploy, right? Let's look at that again. So it clones it out, clones out the code, and then it's basically doing the same thing. Gem install bundler, cd into resource, bundle install.
Can you not cache between those? Or cache between steps?
So if you, I'll show you this real quick. It caches Docker image. So meaning, one of my first jobs actually pulls down the Docker image from Docker Hub, so it doesn't have to go and fetch another Docker Hub, right? So it keeps track of that, and if there's a new version coming, added to the Docker Hub, and it'll download it, and then it'll cache it. But between jobs, depending on how you set it up. So if you want to use the output of another job from different job, you will actually have to use task inside of one job. Yeah? But I actually have two separate jobs. Or, better yet, you can preload your Docker. So you can go ahead and create Docker image yourself and preload all the gems that your app needs. And you can do it that way. You can basically lock down all the gems to that Docker image and then just use that one. So you don't have to you don't have to go and fetch all the gems. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, cool. So now let's see. Let's see what it's doing. So it pre-compiled it, right? And then the next job, deploy CF. I did put deploy CF, right? And it's deploying my app. And what is it doing? It's downloading all the tools that we need because it's using, where is, yeah, Ruby build pack. I'm blind. Why can I not? Yeah, Ruby build pack right here. So do you know how Heroku, do you guys care about how CF, Pivotal, Cloud Foundry, or Heroku works when you do a push? So you probably heard of stack in Heroku, right? CDR stack, and there are different stacks, right? Stack is basically a base OS image. And Cloud Foundry uses the term stem cell. So stem cell is basically OS image, and basically gives you access to the hardware, networking adapters, and all that stuff. But you need a runtime, right? Java people need JVM, Ruby people need RVM, .NET people need .NET framework. So those are framework or runtime, and build pack is basically runtime. So you have stack, runtime, and your app goes on top of it. For 5 seconds, I'm going to try to sell Pivotal Cloud Foundry and why people like it. Is because as enterprise are getting bigger and bigger, you have to add more IT people, right? And because in terms of patching, like who patches those servers, operating systems, and also runtimes? You know, like Equifax got hacked. You know why they got hacked? They were using very old version of framework called Strut. And the CVE was found like a long time ago. They didn't update it. So hackers were trolling around. Oh, they're using Strut. And they haven't patched it. So let me go and, right? So Heroku's the same way, PCF the same way. They have an automated way of patching runtime as well as OS layer so that developers can focus on what we are good at, which is writing code. All right. So it pushes it, blah, 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 waiting for app to start. And it was completed. And notify kicks up, and that's done, and now it's green, right? So if I go to Slack, yep, 8 o'clock right now, deployment succeeded. Yeah. Yeah, this is not a screenshot. This is actually, it's working. Yeah. All right. So that's demo. Oh, and since it's open source, by the way, this whole thing is written, the UI is written in Vue.js, and you can contribute, of course. We are always looking for contributors. And also the backend is written in Go. And to y'all Ruby developers, you should be proud of Cloud Foundry because still some of the components are written in Ruby. You're like, oh, Ruby is just for web development, and once your customers are matured and whatever, you need to switch off to Java or whatever, right? But so Cloud Foundry is a very complex IaaS orchestration system, right? It's very complex. When your server goes, one of the VM goes down, it knows how to resurrect and whatever, and it's written in Ruby, most of the parts. So you should be proud of that. But anyway, so what I was going to show you real quick. So remember, we were using Git resource to clone source code out. There's basically source code available for it. So you can take a look at it, right? And it describe all the options. Same thing with CF resource if you want to take a look into it. And this one is a Slack notification. And as you notice, this is Concourse, and this is Cloud Foundry community. So, and it's forked from some dude. Some dude just created it, and Cloud Foundry liked it and started adopting it, right? Oh yeah, I didn't check if my app was, oh, so lovely, it's red. And just to not really wow you, this is a pipeline for Concourse. Okay, so it's kind of recursive. Concourse, oh, not that, I don't want to print that, sorry. Oh, actually it's getting, yeah, I cannot make this part bigger, but Concourse, as you know, as you imagine, it requires lots of dependency. So these are all the dependencies. And then it's basically building Concourse Docker images, right? And multiple Docker images. So they laid very complex build steps in this fashion. And I kind of like the UI. I don't know about you guys. But anyway, let's go back to my okay, what happened to my, did I accidentally close my, I did. Oh, no, never mind, here. So, oh, Nokogiri, right? Nokogiri, do you guys know Nokogiri?
It takes a long time to build.
Yeah, and Ruby, Rails is dependent upon that, right? It's very complex XML parsing engine. And Ruby, and Rails uses that. And so Nokogiri team uses Concourse. And guess why? Because one of the main maintainers works for Pivotal. Yeah, he's a director of engineering. So yeah, so there it is. So you can actually go here and look at a Concourse gem. So you can, so this guy went ahead. He's a director of he's our director of engineering, one of the directors, and he went ahead and created a gem. So you can you actually use Concourse in your Ruby project, and you can just import it. You can just install it, and just like you have device install and it generates those files for you, this does the same thing. And these are the resources that you can read more about Concourse. And any questions about Concourse?
Do you offer a hosted solution?
Hosted solution, I can myself, yes. Yeah. Price negotiable. No, there's no hosting providers that I know of. Yeah.
I was kind of curious if the UI kind of provided for kind of like some of the artifacts that were built that you might want to have around like test coverage over time or anything like that.
Yeah, I know. So usually so some of the clients that I helped, so they really cared about test coverage, and because they are used for auditing, right? So if you're working for a company that is under SOX compliance, every year someone has to come in, like people from Accenture or whatever, Deloitte, they come in and look at what you've done. So they wanted to record all the test result. So what we do is we have basically after unit testing is done, they were using Quality Hub. It's a SaaS-based system running inside of their data center. So we basically capture the output of the test and then just call the API and say, hey, you take it. Yeah. So that's a way to do it. Any other questions? Slides are available for $20? No, I'm kidding. No. I'm not a salesman. No, it's $19.99. Any other questions? Since I work for Pivotal Labs, used to, every meeting or presentation we do, we like to do a retrospective. So I know it's kind of geared towards me, so you probably don't want to be so mean to me, but I'd love to get some feedback, live feedback. So let's do plus delta. It's one of the ways you can do retro. When I say plus, tell me the good things, things that I do well. Delta is improvement, things that I could improve better, right? I know I'm a little bit lower on energy today. I got 3 little kids, and I'm a zombie. So plus. Huh? Oh, really? Oh, man. Thank you. I can give you slides for free now. Next. Okay, that's good. All right. I'm getting ready. Oh, plus?
Big plus for live demo.
Live demo? Oh, that's okay. That was good. Oh, thank you. Delta. I'm ready for it now. I got a lot of pluses, so I'm a little ready. Yeah, I'm ready. Come on. Yeah. So did it really bother? Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. And this joke, I even forgot I put it in there, right? It'll be funny. It's not even funny anymore. Anyway, yeah, I'll definitely work on that. And yeah, I wasn't very empathetic, right? Because when I was working on my screen, I was like, hey, everything looks great. Of course, we have this gigantic TV. Not even Samsung. No, I'm kidding. So any other delta? Yeah.
You could probably stop a little less frequently to make sure people are living. It breaks up a little bit of the flow.
Sure.
I understand why.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. Okay. And I'll keep that in mind. Any other delta? Okay. You guys gave me a lot of positive feedback, so I'll do a plus on you guys. Aha. How about that? Back to you. Plus, no. Let's start with the delta. I don't think I had any deltas, quite frankly. Plus, engagement. I thought, I was down. I was low in energy, but you guys were paying attention. Nobody was really looking at their phone or things. So I appreciate that, and thank you for everything. Thank you.